Hey everybody, Emma here, also known as 8vinyllow, bringing you all another video. Finally, I'm sitting down to record this. I know that I've been promising this video to you guys for like 3 weeks now, but life and stuff kind of got in the way, and then all of a sudden it's like summer's over, and I'm still trying to like process 2020, and it's like midway through 2021 now, so I don't know where the time's going. We go back to school soon. I'm getting some stuff for my classroom, trying to get that all set up, so life's a little bit crazy, but the good news is this video right now, Nashville Vinyl Haul 2021. Dylan Record Spinner, Mike at Retro Spin Vinyl, Jenna at Spins and Needles, and Marican at Marican Lehman Craddock. We consider ourselves the youngest members of the VC, and over the last kind of year and a half have developed an extremely strong friendship, just vinyl community related and just in general as well. I consider them really family at this point, some of my closest friends just in general. We planned a trip to Nashville, and so about almost a month ago now, in mid-July, we all met up in Nashville and had one of the best weeks and experiences of my life. So if you're interested in watching that kind of trip come together and watch the things that we did and the places that we went to go dig at, go ahead and check out the documentary over at Dylan's channel at The Record Spinner. That documentary is finally up. I'm going to link it down below. It's like 2.5 hours, so it's definitely one that either you want like coffee and breakfast and lunch with. Now in the documentary, if you watch the documentary, you already know what I grabbed. But so this video is basically for those who may not have watched the documentary or who for whatever reason don't have interest in that. So that what you do you. But I did want to share with all of you on my channel what I picked up on that trip and why my wallet is off limits for a very, very long, very long time. The first place that we went to when we got to Nashville was a place called McKay's. It had books, DVDs, video games. It was just kind of a mix, an assortment of things. So of course, though, I ran right away to the vinyl section, and this was before even we met up with anybody else. And I did pick up a couple of records at McKay's. I probably could have picked up more, but considering it was the first stop of the first day and we had like a whole week there, I wanted to kind of, I guess, restrict what I was buying because I knew that we had a long week ahead. So the first thing that I grabbed, this is Larry Coryell, Fairyland, and this is actually a live recording of Larry Coryell. Now Larry Coryell, he's like a jazz fusion artist, a jazz fusion guitarist, and I first discovered Larry Coryell through a blind Goodwill purchase like a couple of years ago. There were a few of his albums at a Goodwill and they were in great condition and they just looked interesting, and so I grabbed them kind of on a blind buy, and I really enjoyed what I heard. He's kind of the guy that I go to with those records where I just need to like get in the mode and either do lesson planning or whatever it is, just kind of get in the mode and vibe out and zone out and kind of pay attention to, I guess zone out and pay attention are kind of opposites there, but you kind of get what I'm saying. So just a really good jazz fusion type feel. This was recorded, I think 1973. I want to say that date sounds right. I might be wrong, but it's somewhere in that kind of early 70s, and this was when he's still kind of doing his jazz rock stuff. So it does have that like jazz rock element, and actually he lends some vocals, I think, on 1 or 2 tracks on here, which is always fun to hear as well. But like I said, if you really enjoy kind of jazz fusion and really good kind of jazz guitar, I think you'd really dig Larry Coryell, and so for a couple bucks, this was definitely a must grab for me. The other thing that I picked up at McKay's, for those of you who are new to my channel or just don't know, I am a history teacher, so outside of music, history music history, but history in general is my other passion and other love. And so every time I see the Smithsonian Folkways stuff, I always try to pick it up. And with that being said, I don't really see them that often. So when I saw them wheel out a brand new cart and this was sitting right on top, I grabbed this. This is Songs of Struggle and Protest, 1930 to 1950, sung by Pete Seeger. The lyrics still stand true today. from this recording, and of course has one of my favorite songs on the last song on side 2, What a Friend We Have in Congress. So yeah, so had to pick this up. Really, really wonderful recording. Next store that we went to was Third Man, and Dylan definitely did kind of the cleanup in Third Man, but I did pick up a couple of albums that have been on my want list for a while. Both are actually blues related. So we walked in, and the first thing that I saw, and this had been on my want list, this specific pressing, this Third Man reissue had been on my want list for a couple months now. It came out a couple of years ago, and then it was out of print, and finally they brought it back, and now again I think it's out of print. So if you find this reissue, I definitely recommend picking it up. Third Man does a wonderful job. But Electric Mud, and of course the hype sticker here, one of the most controversial blues albums of all time. This is Muddy Waters takes on psych music. You know, this is what, late 60s. When, 1968, this was originally released. You know, that's right at the height of the psychedelic rock kind of movement occurring in music. And this was kind of the label's response, Chess's response to that, kind of trying to bring Muddy into the mainstream again with this psychedelic rock electric blues release. So at the time when this was released, of course, it was a little bit controversial, but over the years has definitely evolved and has become kind of a cult album. So great pickup. I finally pulled the trigger on a box set that I had been wanting for probably a year now. Haven't even cracked this open yet. This is the Third Man limited edition release, Ann Arbor Blues Festival 1969, volumes 1 and 2. Includes goodies in here. It celebrates the 50th anniversary of America's first festival dedicated to the blues. So of course, this festival, 1969, think of what else is happening in 1969. If you guessed Woodstock, you're correct. I think this was a couple of weeks before Woodstock, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the date on this. But this was like the attempt to kind of like, you know, how I said with Electric Mud, bring those blues artists back into the mainstream. This was kind of the attempt to do that. This introduced blues musicians to a very kind of younger white audience. So, you know, you had B.B. King, you had Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Son House, and so on. I mean, the best of the best when it comes to blues and electric blues and country. I mean, all of the above. This was the festival for that. So just a really kind of monumental, influential festival, and this was just something that I needed for the collection. Like I said, this comes with a bunch of goodies, and if you're interested, since I haven't even cracked this open yet, maybe I'll do an unboxing and show you what's inside. But it's been out for a couple of years now, so you might either already have it or have seen what's in it, but either way, I think I'll still do an unboxing to showcase it because it is really, really neat. The next store that we went to eventually was Grimies. And of course, Grimies, right? A lot of people know Grimies. It's kind of a famous record store stop in Nashville. Although I do have to say it wasn't my favorite stop. I don't know if I'm going to say what I want to say. I was a little bit underwhelmed at Grimies, but I still did end up picking up some fillers in the collection, things that I've wanted for a while. So the first thing that I grabbed was is the Buzzcocks. This is their debut album. Of course, this is the reissue that I think just came out on this silver wax. I've been really digging the Buzzcocks recently. I've liked the Buzzcocks for a long time, but I've kind of been going back and re-listening to their stuff and their discography. So I definitely do want to start to build up the Buzzcocks in my collection. So what better way than to start with their debut album, which is absolutely fantastic. You're going to be shocked that I did not have this already, but I had to grab, finally, the Ramones, Rocket to Russia, from put out by Rhino. So I finally have that. And then to complete my small faces, as you know, if you've been watching me, I've been really digging the small faces, and I went on like a splurge and bought almost all of their albums through Acoustic Sounds a couple of months ago with a little bit of Liquid Courage. I made that kind of large order, although luckily they don't have that large of a discography, but finally wrapped up in Grimies' Small Faces collection. This is a really, really good album. We went to a place called The Groove, which was a fairly small record store, but it actually became one of my favorite just record stores ever. The selection was phenomenal. The vibe was awesome. It was in like an old, small little house. It was just, I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, the selection was fantastic. The first thing that I saw there on the wall when I walked in, and this was an album that I was specifically looking for in Nashville because John at the Digital Gramophone actually introduced me to this artist and this album a couple of weeks before, and I actually mentioned in our group chat, if I see that in Nashville, I'm gonna grab that. If I don't see it in Nashville, then I'll order it online. But this is definitely one of the best releases of the year so far. And I know John's been turning on a lot of people in the vinyl community. That kind of sounded... Anyway, he's been turning this album on. He's not turning on people in the vinyl community. I don't know. He's turning people on to this album, Amethyst Kaya, Worry and Strange. You guys need to check this album out. Fantastic album. Cannot wait to finally crack this open and listen to it. This is hands down going to be one of the best albums of the year, and is definitely probably going to be in my top 10 albums of the year. Also picked up, I've been wanting this one for a while, the Baby Huey story, the living legend. Really sad story, Chicago connection, but of course Baby Huey, this one album released after his death. He was 26 years old. I think this was produced by Curtis Mayfield on his label, Kurtome. I think that's how you pronounce it. But like I said, this Chicago connection, just one of the best and influential psychedelic funk soul albums coming out at the time. Limited edition by Run Out Groove. So I grabbed this as the Groove as well. I don't know if this was just released. I think this was in the new release section, so when I saw this, I snatched it right up. Finally have Songs for Drilla of Lou Reed, John Cale. Lou Reed is a guy that I am a completist for, and I did not grab this for Record Store Day. I think this was a couple Record Store Days back now. I can't exactly remember. But this was actually on sale at the Groove, I think like 10% off or something, since it was old Record Store Day stock. So I finally decided to pull the trigger. I wasn't worried about it because these are readily available online, Discogs, wherever. So I kind of held off, but it was finally time to fill this gap in the collection. So I also grabbed this. Next place that we went to, this might have been the next day now, was a place called Allisons Record Shop. And a very unique store. She labels everything, so she tells you if it's very good plus, if it's excellent, near mint, whatever it is. She kind of writes on a sticky note that she puts on the outer sleeve, telling you what type of press it is. And I definitely found that store was very much focused on like promos and original presses, OG copies and things like that. So that was really neat. You're definitely paying up for it at that store, but I mean, when you're buying really obscure OG presses and rare OG presses and stuff, I mean, that's gonna happen. So one thing that I found there in the folk section, of course, my guy, Bert Jansch, Moonshine. This was an album that I needed, and you can see here where she wrote her little note. She said it was near mint, white label promo, 1973, first press, folk rock, folk with insert. So there's the white label promo. And I do have to say, upon listening, it does sound near mint. So she is right on with her grading. Not that I was concerned about it, but if you're ever wondering, if you ever find yourself at Allisons. And this was my favorite, is my favorite pickup from Nashville. This was something that I have been wanting for a very, very long time. Terry Reid's album on the Yellow Epic label. And there is a Cheap Trick connection here, of course, off of this album. Terry Reid, in English, vocalist, should have been well, I'm not going to say should have been. I mean, he could have been. I'm not going to get into that argument, but he could have been the lead singer of Led Zeppelin. This is who Jimmy Page originally wanted to take on as for vocals for the New Yardbirds, or of course later became Led Zeppelin. Really underrated vocalist. I mean, at the time now, I think he's celebrated as a vocalist. I do believe that people have caught on to how good he truly was, but definitely underrated at the time. Fantastic voice, guys. If you aren't familiar with Terry Reid, definitely check him out. This is a fantastic album as well. Super Lungs is great. But there's a song on here called Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace. And Cheap Trick, off their debut album, which is my favorite Cheap Trick album and one of my favorite albums of all time, they do a cover of that song, which is just phenomenal. So of course with the Cheap Trick connection, I needed to have this album, but then Terry Reid, just as an artist and as a singer and vocalist, fantastic. So, like I said, one of my favorite pickups from Nashville. Next place that we went to, and this was a little bit outside of Nashville, but it was a place called Spinners. It was about 30 minutes outside Nashville, and I can't remember exactly what the town was called, but it's about a 30-minute drive, maybe 40-minute drive. Picked up a couple albums that I've been wanting as well. H.P. Lovecraft 2. As you can tell, it's, late 60s, your psychedelic album. They kind of have a folky vibe to them as well, but I needed this album because of the Chicago connection, this band coming out of Chicago, Illinois. You guys know how I feel about my Chicago music scene and Illinois music, so this was a really cool find in Nashville. Wonderful condition, sounds fantastic. Also part of Rick Nielsen's Baker Dozen. I think there was an article where he listed his top 12 favorite albums, and this was on there, and ever since then I've really been wanting it. Now, I don't know a lot about the Mothers of Invention and Frank Zappa. That's a whole different world that I need to get into at some point. I know that Jenna's gonna help me out, but I was familiar with this album because of Rick Nielsen and that Cheap Trick connection, so I picked it up. We have the Mothers of Invention, their album Absolutely Free on the Verve label. Next store we went to was Phonolux, another fantastic store in Nashville. The Groove and Phonolux definitely up there as my favorite Nashville stores, and then Spinner's just a great store, but like I said, that wasn't in Nashville. Picked up Duster Bennett, Just a Duster, of course on that Blue Horizon label, British blues label. I love me a good Blue Horizon label, and I love Duster Bennett, fantastic, underrated British blues musician. So really cool find there. Also picked up, this is a German import, Rory Gallagher Sinner compilation album of material from his first couple of solo releases. So this is just kind of for collection purposes, fairly cheap. I think it was like $8 or something. The next place that we went to, when we left Nashville, we went to Kentucky to go spend Record Store Day in Kentucky with Marican and see her house and Marican and Jared and things like that. One of the places we stopped at was called JTB's Record Room or something along the lines there. I'll insert a picture and you can see the actual name. But he kind of specializes in bootlegs and Japanese presses, and it was really neat. And when we were going through, I didn't see any Cheap Trick stuff, and just taking a chance, I looked at him and I said, "You don't have any Cheap Trick stuff? You need Cheap Trick." And all of a sudden he pulls a stack out from his desk and he's flipping through them, and he holds up a Japanese pressing of Dream Police, which I actually already have, as well as this US press of At Budokan with the Obi strip. Now, I have 1 million of copies of At Budokan. I probably have like 6 or 7 different variants. Maybe that's pushing it. Maybe 4 or 5 different variants. This might be 5 or 6 now. But do not have one with the original Obi strip. So I'm like, I'll take that, no problem. So eventually, my goal is to get the self-titled debut original Japanese pressing with the Obi strip. That's like a grail for me right now. So eventually, I'm gonna want that, all of them, but that one for sure. The last place that we went to is a place called Mellow Mats, I think in Bowling Green, Kentucky. This is like Mariken's store. Really, really nice owner. Matt's fantastic. The nice staff that works there. And actually we got there fairly late around closing time, like 10 minutes before closing. And he actually let us browse for like a half hour past closing. So that was really, really nice as well. But I didn't want to go too crazy because it was the night before record store day. We just got back from Nashville. My wallet's like crying in my pocket. And like I said, we still have the record store day the next day. So I didn't want to go too crazy, but I did pick up a couple of, again, fillers and albums that I have been looking for and wanting for a while. The Jam, this is the Modern World. I did have In the City already, but finally filled with This is the Modern World in all mod cons. And last but not least, no, I did not own this album before this trip, but now I finally do. T-Rex Electric Warrior. One of those albums I kept telling myself I'll pick up eventually, and this was finally eventually. So this was in the new arrivals, scooped that right up. But that is it. That's it in terms of pickups. I say that like there's not a lot here, but there's a lot going on. But I'll, you know, fantastic trip. I had such a good time. It was so much fun digging at all of these places. I grabbed so many albums that I've been wanting, that have been in my want list for what feels like a million years now. So it was fun to cross stuff off. It was fun to hang out with everybody, go digging with everybody, just an absolute blast. So I wouldn't change anything. Although my cards and wallet might disagree, but whatever. So that's all for this video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the pickups. Let me know in the comments below what you thought was cool or not cool, I guess. But don't come after Cheap Trick. That's my only rule on this channel, always in the comments. Do not come after Cheap Trick. That's all for this video. I'm going off. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Hope you all are doing well, staying safe, and I'll see you all for my next video. Bye, guys.